almost walked away that night. I was tired, annoyed, and already late getting home. But one small choice, one moment of kindness, changed the way I look at people forever. What his wife did afterwards still sits with me to this day. Not because it was loud or dramatic, but because it was quiet, human, and unforgettable. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Stories like this are why we built your channel name, a place where real moments remind us how powerful kindness can be. I worked the late shift at a small distribution warehouse just outside the city. It wasn't a dream job, but it paid the bills. Long hours, heavy boxes, and the same faces every day. You learn people's habits fast in a place like that. That's how I knew something was off with Mark. Mark was usually steady, early 40s, broad shoulders, quiet voice. He had a picture of his wife and 2 kids taped inside his locker. He talked about them a lot, especially his daughter who had just learned to ride a bike. But that Friday night, Mark wasn't himself. He showed up late. His eyes were glassy, his shirt was wrinkled like he'd slept in it. By break time, I could smell alcohol on his breath. I told myself it wasn't my business. People have rough days. Still, I kept an eye on him. Near the end of the shift, Mark stumbled while lifting a box and nearly fell. That's when our supervisor stepped in and quietly told him to clock out early. No yelling, just concern. Mark nodded, embarrassed. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. That should have been the end of it. But as I walked out to the parking lot, I saw him sitting in his car, forehead resting on the steering wheel. The engine wasn't on. He just sat there, not moving. I stood by my own car, keys in hand, arguing with myself. I didn't really know him. If I got involved, it could get messy. Maybe he'd be offended. Maybe he'd tell me to mind my own business. But then I thought about that photo in his locker. The one with his kids smiling, his wife leaning into him like he was her safe place. So I walked over. I tapped lightly on his window. He looked up, startled, then rolled it down. "I'm fine," he said quickly, like he'd rehearsed it. "Mark," I said, keeping my voice calm. "You don't look fine, and I don't think you should drive." He let out a long breath, like he'd been holding it all day. "My wife's going to kill me," he muttered. I told him I could give him a ride home, no big deal. I lived in the same general direction. He hesitated, pride maybe, or shame. Then his shoulders sagged. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Okay, thank you." I drove his car to the side of the lot, locked it, and helped him into my passenger seat. The ride was quiet at first. City lights passed by as the radio hummed softly. I could tell he was fighting tears. About 10 minutes in, he started talking, not in a dramatic way, just bits and pieces, like words spilling out before he could stop them. He'd been laid off from his second job earlier that week. Bills were stacking up. His mom was sick back in another state. That drink he'd had earlier wasn't to celebrate, it was to numb the panic. "I messed up," he said. "I never drink before work. I just didn't know what else to do." I didn't lecture him. I didn't offer advice. I just listened. When we pulled up to his house, the porch light was on. A small, cozy place with a minivan in the driveway and kids' toys scattered on the lawn. He froze. "She's going to see me like this," he whispered. I told him I'd walk him to the door. His wife answered before we could knock. She was about his age, wearing sweatpants and an old college hoodie. Her face went from worry to relief the moment she saw him standing there. "Oh my God," she said, pulling him into a hug. "You're okay." Mark started crying, not loud, just quiet, shaking sobs against her shoulder. I explained what happened, keeping it simple. No judgment, just facts. She looked at me, eyes shining. "Thank you for bringing him home," she said. "Really. Thank you." I nodded, feeling awkward, and turned to leave. But she stopped me. "Please," she said, "just wait 1 second." I stood on the porch while she guided Mark inside. I could hear her telling him everything was going to be okay. A moment later, she came back out. In her hands was an envelope. "I know this isn't much," she said, holding it out to me. I immediately shook my head. No, I don't want, it's not money, she said gently. Please, just take it. I did. Inside the envelope was a handwritten note. I didn't read it until I got back in my car. It said, "You didn't just drive my husband home tonight. You gave my children their father back for the night. You gave me peace when I was terrified. You chose kindness when you didn't have to. I will never forget that." At the bottom were the words, "Thank you for seeing him as a human being." I sat there longer than I meant to, staring at that note while my chest felt tight. The next week at work, Mark was different, not magically fixed, but grounded. He thanked me again, quietly in the break room, said he'd started talking to his wife about everything, said that night could have ended very differently. Months passed, life went on. But I carried that note in my glove compartment. Every time I felt cynical, every time I felt too tired to care, it reminded me how close people walk to the edge without anyone noticing. Kindness doesn't always look heroic. Sometimes it's just staying a few minutes longer, asking one simple question, offering a ride home when it would be easier not to. I didn't save Mark. I didn't fix his problems. I just didn't turn away. And sometimes, that's enough. If this story touched you, remember this. You never know what someone is carrying when they show up to work, or walk into a room, or sit alone in their car. A small act of kindness can ripple into someone's life in ways you may never fully see, but they will. Remember it forever. Let's be those people, the ones who choose kindness anyway.